I've talked a lot about hue and saturation because I use it all the time. But I wanted to take a few minutes and go into it a little more to show you some of the possibilities that you can do with this amazing tool. Hue and saturation is not a tool in the tools palette, but nevertheless, I think it's one of the most important things in Photoshop, and I want to just expand on it a little bit. I took this picture just recently in the tide pools at Point Lobos in the California coast. It's a nice composition of different colors in the rocks, but with hue and saturation, and I'll just use the keyboard shortcut here, Command U. On a PC it would be Control U. Brings up this dialog box, and if you do nothing else but saturate the colors, watch what happens. This is now like an abstract work of art. It is definitely unnatural, so if your orientation to photographing nature photography is to capture exactly what you see, this is not it. But as an abstract work of art, it's quite intriguing. Another thing that you can do in hue and saturation, let me save this because I really like that. We'll call this Rocks Saturated. Let me show you something else that you can do. Here's a shot I took in the Great Smokies in Tennessee. In the hue and saturation dialog box, you can choose individual colors to saturate. For example, I can choose just blue, and then when I move the saturation, it only affects the blue colors. Look at the water. Much more interesting. Did not affect the green trees, didn't affect the rocks. Just the blue because there was blue in the water. Now it did affect these rocks down here because they already had a little bit of blue in them. So you can select individual colors. If you go down here to the bottom of the hue and saturation dialog box, what this means, this shows you the range of color it's affecting. So if we narrow the range, it's going to affect only these precise shades of color and nothing more. Let me show you yet another use for the hue and saturation. Lots of times when you photograph red, the red becomes super saturated, too much so. You start to lose detail in your subject. In this case, this spectacular arrangement of flowers was photographed at the Keukenhof Gardens in Holland, and they have red tulips everywhere in April. I found that many of the pictures I took, the details in those flowers were blown out almost as if I was overexposing highlights, but it was just the red end of the spectrum that digital photography and film in the past had trouble with. What you can do in the hue and saturation dialog box is choose red and desaturate it. Bring that tone down just enough to bring detail back into the petals that you might have lost. So this ability to manipulate individual colors is worth its weight in gold. Let me close this. Here is another picture that I took in the Smokies, and it was very foggy and very moody, but watch what happens when I increase the saturation here. It suddenly gets really interesting. The gray color that the fog typically is goes this really incredible blue, and leaves that were dead, like right there, just pop. They seem to come to life. So there's a lot of things you can do in the hue and saturation dialog box that will turn good pictures into awesome pictures, and you can have this incredible control over individual areas of color in your pictures.